Now that we've got the mandatory VR6 sounds out of the way, welcome back to the channel, guys. In today's episode, we're going to do a little bit of work on my 2012 Volkswagen Touareg with the VR6 engine. Now the engine is running fine. However, it is burning about a liter of oil every 2,500 kilometers or so. If you've seen my Audi videos, you're gonna know that this is actually really not that bad compared to, say, a liter every 500 kilometers or so. But I still wanna try and improve it if I can, because as it is right now, I'm adding about 2 liters every oil change for about 5,000 kilometers or so. So because the engine is actually due for an oil change, I figured this is a great time to do this. I'm gonna do a valve cover gasket on the motor. And at the same time, I'm gonna do a very mild piston soak with SeaFoam to see if we can improve that 1 liter per 2,500 kilometer oil consumption sort of number. Now, this is the first time I'm doing a piston soak on a VR6. The process was pretty successful using B12 in my Audis, but this is really, really not severe enough. And I think SeaFoam might actually help us out here. At the end of the piston soak process, so about after 24 hours, I'm gonna go ahead and use the SeaFoam that's already in the oil to do an engine flush, change the oil, and get the car back on the road. And after that, we're gonna see if that oil consumption actually improves. All right, pretty simple, let's get to it. We're gonna start by taking off the air filter and then eventually make our way into the intake manifold so we can get access to the valve cover. Yeah, I had a problem with this last time as well. Every single one of the spark plug connectors is busted, and honestly makes perfect sense. They're so hard to take off. I don't understand why they cannot make something a little bit more sturdy than this. Like you cannot even put your finger in here. So how are you supposed to get that off? Silly. That's impossible. It's not really thought out very well.
A few moments later.
There's our harness. Let's start taking bolts off for the manifold. It is a 2-piece, so this whole top should come off together, leaving us with the bottom. So I mean, pretty easy job. That's probably about 15-20 minutes if you don't get hung up on the connectors and stuff like that. 2-piece manifold making this very, very, very easy. I imagine if it was a single piece like some of the older VR6s and you have to access the bolts from the bottom, you would have a lot harder time taking that out. Watch out for this metal plate here. It's holding the valve that's sitting on the side of the manifold, and you can really take it out without unbolting this. I didn't want to take the valve off the manifold because frankly, I didn't know what was going to happen. Now, this is kind of why I went ahead and tried to do this. This could all be spillover from oil changes, but honestly, if you look at the whole valve cover, it's pretty dirty. So I think it was about time to do this. Pretty straightforward. Let's take the valve cover off now and just replace the gaskets. Of course, my camera died just as I was pulling the valve cover off. So I just wanted to kind of show you, there's a specific pattern for removing the bolts. You can Google it online. I'm gonna post a link to the picture. With the valve cover off, we can inspect the cams to make sure there's no uneven wear, clean up the surface, and now we're ready to put the valve cover back on. But before we do that, we gotta wash it. I think this gasket was due for replacement. This is completely hard. So the central seals are pretty much done. Oh my God, this is like hard as a rock. Should be only one way we can put this back. Wow, you can really tell how big of a difference you've got from the old gasket to the new one. The old one was completely falling apart. There we go. That's pretty easy. And now we need to put the bolts back in. That's the valve cover gasket just about done, guys. As you saw, very straightforward job. Really nothing all that complicated about it at all. I'm gonna go ahead and do a piston soak with SeaFoam High Mileage because this is very mild and it's actually used as an engine flush. So I'm gonna go ahead and soak the pistons for the next 24 hours, rotate the crank every 6 hours, add a little bit of liquid, and just do the oil change tomorrow. Now, if you are curious about piston soaking, I've detailed the process in a couple of Audi videos. You can go check those out here. Let's just go ahead and do this right now. First thing we got to do is pull out the plugs. The spark plugs are looking pretty good. If you remember in the last episode, I actually ended up replacing these. So these are, more or less new. They've got 5,000 kilometers on them. Number 4 and 5 do have a bit of carbon buildup compared to the rest of them. So 4 and 5 are not exactly running that great by the looks of it. So we're going to see after the piston soak. I'm going to keep an eye on the 2 of them. This could be an injector issue. The car does have a bit of a smell when you start it, a bit of a fuel smell. So it's entirely possible that we have injectors on 4 and 5 that are pretty dirty perhaps. They're not atomizing very well. So I'll keep an eye on these. I'll clean the spark plugs. But other than that, we're just going to go ahead with the piston soak. Quick look inside your cylinder first, just to make sure that everything is in order. Yeah, these look very clean. I've got about 480 milliliters in the can, 6 cylinders, so that gives us about 80 milliliters per cylinder. Not really doing this very scientifically, but like I said, I'm not too worried about the overall process here. So 1 can done. We're going to cap the hose off just to stop evaporation. Also cap these back up so that we don't get any garbage inside of them, and we'll let this sit for 6 to 10 hours. All right, this has been cooking for about 12 hours. Let's take a look inside. Yeah, liquid's gone from all of them. I've already got a can of SeaFoam inside, so I'm not gonna bother adding any more at this point. Like I said, we're trying to do a very mild piston soak. I'm not trying to cause any damage. The engine's running fine. So I'm gonna monitor over the next 5,000 kilometers. I'm gonna keep an eye on cylinder number 4. I'm curious as to what's going on in there, and we'll see if the consumption's improved. Let's close this up. We'll blow out the cylinders, spark plugs back, and we're just gonna do the engine flush. We've got some centering pins on each side. Don't forget the little vacuum line that we just took out of that valve earlier. After 20 minutes of working the engine with a can of SeaFoam inside, it's not too bad. This oil is at about 6,000 kilometers. You can still see the color, no feeling of grit inside. This is actually pretty clean, well-used oil. All right, let's fill this up. 6.7 liters according to the books, and we're done for the day. We're gonna wrap this episode here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'm at about 1,400 kilometers after the piston soak. We've lost a tiny little bit of oil off the top here. Normally by now I'm at least half or less than half, because they kill the entire liter in about 2,000 kilometers. In any case, if you like what you see, click a thumbs up. If you want to see more, click subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.